Gentlewoman is recognized.
I thank the distinguished ranking member, and I thank the manager on the other side. This is National Police Week. I started my week in joining a family from Houston whose husband and father had fallen as a police officer in the line of duty. But it was also with the throngs of men and women of law enforcement across America and families at the 42nd annual, I believe, National Memorial Day for Law Enforcement Officers. I spent quite a bit of time there interacting with officers that were not only from Texas or Houston. I want to respect the service that they've given, as we, as members of Congress and Democrats, and my friends on the other side of the aisle, should do. And as we interacted, the response was an appreciation, as I expressed an appreciation for their service. We've done a number of bills on the floor, and I am glad that we had one that honored that day, and I proudly managed that bill, and as well a number of others that were on previously. There are a number of bills that have been on the floor or on the floor today, at least two. Before I speak of the underlying bill, let me acknowledge my support for H.R. 3091, the Federal Law Enforcement Officer Service Weapon Purchase, which has previously been debated, but I just want to briefly say that this deals with federal law enforcement officers in good standing. It's a smart way to deal with guns that have been retired that will allow, rather than creating dust in the GSA, and as well, who knows, falling in the wrong hands for whatever reason you might say, rather than destroying those guns, it would allow federal agencies to sell the handguns used in the performance of their duties to federal law enforcement officers in good standing, promoting public safety, reducing waste, and recouping taxpayer dollars. This is good legislation. I hope as it makes its way that they will add some form of a check, which all officers believe in, background checks, and as well that maybe they'll take those resources and invest in bringing down gun violence, which we know as of this week, 2 law enforcement officers were injured in New Mexico as a young, underage teenager had an AR-15 and killed 3 innocent civilians. It would be nice if the legislation would use those resources to help bring down gun violence. But H.R. 3091 is a good bill, and I intend to support it. We're obviously now.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
I yield an additional minute to the gentlelady.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
We're now at a time when we're talking about H.R. 2494. And I just want to say that in interacting with law enforcement officers, I've never heard one person raise this. And I don't think we can condemn prosecutors across America that they're not willing to stand up and be counted when any assault occurs against an officer. Any such legitimate assault should be both an arrest and prosecution. That's not what we're saying. And if it happens to be an LPR or green card holder or whatever status the person has, arrested and prosecuted. But what we're saying is desperate people come to this country and they work hard to get a status. And if it is legitimate, they wind up in jail. That's where they can be. 2494 ignores that. 1, it is not one that you've heard any officers asking for. 2, that person can be convicted and wind up in jail. I know there's an amendment to say if they're convicted, that would be the case, but ordinarily they would be able to serve their time. I don't think that we should use this hammer to tear families apart. To tear families apart.
Is recognized.
To tear families apart because this bill has been ill-drafted and harmful measure that does not seek to address a need that people are crying for. The bill insults prosecutors across America. You can't label them all. In essence, it insults law enforcement officers who may themselves know that somebody was in distress, and they might respond accordingly. And it insults the long time it takes to become a citizen of the United States, and for some of these individuals who've been waiting and waiting and maybe had an unfortunate circumstance. We're talking about some of the incidences that Ranking Member Nadler cited. It's just unruly. And so I ask my colleagues to consider thoughtfully that we're doing good in a bipartisan way. Let us continue to do that. Police like to see that. They like to see themselves being affirmed in a bipartisan manner. They don't like to see other people being scapegoated. We want them to be safe. We don't want violence. We don't want them to be injured. That's the statement we all should make. Let's find laws that will ensure that that will not happen.
Gentleman,
With
woman's
that,
time has
I
expired.
yield back my time.